Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of the two Abdullahs. Today it's going to be lit. It's going to be an exciting show. We have the Apostate Prophet Ridwan joining us today. And how is everyone doing? So before we get started, I want everyone to go right to the stream. Click on the thumbs up. Click on the thumbs up because we want lots of people to come and join and see the show. Going to be an excellent show. So before anyone else does anything else, click the thumbs up. We have no thumbs down yet, which is a good sign. Good sign. Yeah, how's everyone doing? Apostate Prophet, welcome.
Thank you so much. I already did the thumbs up yesterday, so I don't have to do that. But thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Awesome, Gondal. How's everything on your end?
Hello, everybody. Nice to have you guys back again. It's a special episode with Apostate Prophet, and it's going to be fun. We're going to be going through some of the silly Islamic narrations in the Quran and Hadith. In fact, like we were going through them before we started, and we found out there's some new ones that even all of us haven't come across before. So going to make for some cool discussions, and we're going to talk about, I had some talking points like some silliness of the apologists, the moon splitting, why did Allah stop these miracle events, Then we'll talk about some authenticity of miracles, and then some contemporary drama going on YouTube between AP and some Muslim apologists. But let's get back to it.
Oh, yeah.
So before we jump into the slides, let's just go through let's talk about some of the drama that's been going on, some of the back and forth, AP. So what's going on with Sajid? You and Sajid had a little bit back and forth. Sajid Lipham. So if any people don't know, Sajid Lipham is a Salafi Muslim. I think he studied in Medina. Yeah. He's been one of the guys that's been, publicly attacking Yasir Qadhi as well. So this is like the neo-Salafi crowd, the crew that thinks they know better than their own scholars who have like more experience, more maturity, actually imams in the community. We're like talking to people like, Sajid was one of those guys right up there bashing YQ for making that zombies video. Oh, how dare he say there's zombies in the Quran, astaghfirullah. Whereas Yasir Qadhi is trying to do damage control, trying to keep people Muslim. He's trying his best. You got these young Salafi guys just like, shut up, you don't know anything, you're an idiot. But apparently he's been going back and forth with you now. So what's going on with that?
Well, it's funny. What happened, how it started, is that there's this Muslim apologist preacher guy called Uthman ibn Farouk, and he put up this billboard which says Jesus will return, Jesus is a Muslim, are you, or something like that. And I found that very funny, and I thought, hey, I never actually talked about the whole absurdity of the idea that Jesus was a Muslim, which Muslims always claim, and I just made a short video. I didn't want to extensively talk about it. I just made a short video in which I said, the title was Jesus a Muslim? And in that video, I basically briefly explained, without even going into any sources or anything, just explained the logic of how absurd it is to claim that the Christian sources of Jesus are corrupt and false because Christians corrupted them, and you cannot trust the Christian narrative because Christians don't have any evidence for their interpretation of Jesus, but you are supposed to trust the Islamic sources, which have no evidence, which have nothing, which are only based on the Quran and Muhammad, which came 600 years later. And I basically explained that we have a historical Jesus that may or may not have existed, but which we have no reason to doubt. And if we go further into non-historical sources, then the next thing that we could trust would be the earliest writings about Jesus, which are the Christian sources, which are texts in the New Testament, the Gospels and epistles. So, and I said basically, this is the most reasonable thing to do. So why would you go to the Islamic sources? It's absurd. And what Sajid did as a response was then to make a video and to insult me and to basically say that the Gospels actually confirm the idea that Jesus was a Muslim, and that you cannot find the divinity and the Son of God idea in the Gospels. You only find that in later texts.
So this to me is such a joke, because I know this is basically Ahmed Deedat. Ahmed Deedat popularized this idea, this false idea. And he is basically, if people don't know, if you're too young to know Ahmed Deedat, you're probably quite young. But Zakir Naik is a protege of Ahmed Deedat. So the same style like Zakir Naik, like coming on this thing and arguing and shouting. Although Ahmed Deedat actually used to debate people, Zakir Naik doesn't like debate people. Right? It seems like he's scared of debate. But Ahmed Deedat was actually debating, and he would use these very showman tactics, not really scholarly tactics, but he'd bring up a Bible and say, "I'll pay anyone $100 who can show me where in the Bible it says Jesus is God." And of course, it's very dramatic, it's very funny, it's very exciting. Muslims love it. They're cheering, they're clapping, takbir, takbir. But like it's a joke. Like it's completely through from the beginning to the end of the gospel. And we don't even need to go to, from my perspective, whether Jesus existed, the mythicism. Like I'm leaning towards, not like Richard Carrier that Jesus didn't exist, but more towards like Bart Ehrman. Jesus did exist. He was an apostolic, rabbinic preacher, Messiah type figure who was executed by the Romans, right? So that's what I lean towards. I think he is much more, there's more scholarly evidence behind that position. But as for the historicity, like I don't even care, because they're not claiming that. They're claiming the Bible. They're saying the Bible says Jesus is not God. To me, this is such a clown statement to make. Like it's such a joke. It's a complete, like it's such an idiotic thing to say. The Bible doesn't say Jesus is the Son of God or however you want to put it. It's a complete joke, because that's exactly what it says. That's the whole point of Christianity from the beginning. It's always been about Jesus being the sacrifice, the Messiah. Like they took, and anyone that listens, and Muslims are big fans of Bart Ehrman. So if they listen to Bart Ehrman, they'll know that what he's saying is that Jesus, the whole point of Christianity was because Jesus was executed. So the Jews were like, this was a big problem for them. Like they weren't expecting the Messiah, which means king, to be executed. They were expecting him to be the king. And according to Bart Ehrman, this was probably, from the Roman perspective, this was considered like an act of treason, saying that I'm going to be the king. This is one theory. I may not be true, but basically, if this was a case, this could have been why they wanted him executed. They didn't want any competition, right? Or it could have been, someone basically ratted him out or whatever. But the point is that when he died, this caused a huge dilemma. And, this was like, okay, now what do we do? Like this was supposed to be the fulfillment of a prophecy. Was Jesus was supposed to be Messiah, but he is executed. So now they made a new doctrine, which is where Christianity came from. But for Muslims to say Christianity never said that, it just blows my mind. Like that makes zero sense, right? It's like Abraham was a Muslim. It's as bad as that, right?
Here are the facts. The earliest texts that you find about Jesus are actually texts within the New Testament, epistles, the Paul's epistles. And if you look at those, Jesus is clearly described as the Son of God, as divine, as the Son of the Father, together with the Holy Spirit. And he will come back to save us. This is what we have to do. We have to wait for our Savior to come back. And so this is the first texts say exactly that. The texts that come after this historically are the Gospels, which we have today, the four Gospels. And if you look at those, especially if you look at the last one, the Gospel of John, if you look at those Gospels, they clearly give the message that Jesus said he will be killed on the cross. He will be killed. He will be raised on the third day. He's the Son of God. He's one with God. God has given him judgment. He gives life just like God. He has to be praised and honored like God. God is within him. He and God are one. He's the Son of God, and so on. Like it says all of these things, and here you have a Muslim coming and saying, well, all of those sources, the earliest sources that we have, no, we cannot trust them. They are all corrupt. What should we trust instead? The Quran, which came 600 years later. And according to the Quran, Jesus was a Muslim. This is the truth and nothing else. I mean, do I even have to point out how dumb that is?
Well, talking about like how weirdly like Jesus is placed in Islamic mythology, I just am sharing a hadith from Riyadh al-Salihin, actually from Sahih Muslim, if you want to put my screen on the thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Is my volume still very low?
Yeah, it's a bit low. You can check your
Okay.
mic settings after. That's fine.
Okay. All right. So here it says, talking about the day of judgment, like when Jesus will come. He says, he will then call that young man, and he will come forward laughing with his face gleaming out of joy. And it will be at this time that Jesus will descend at the white minaret in the eastern side of Damascus, wearing two garments, lightly dyed, and placing his hands on the wings of two angels. So he's going to show up like descending like this in, like, I guess a tobe or something. And then when he will lower his head, drops of water would fall from it. And when he will raise it up, drops like pearls would scatter from it. It's like, when that mermaid comes out of the water and does this. It's kind of like that. And then he goes, like, he'll go searching for Dajjal and then go kill him there. Obviously, Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is the Holy Land. And yeah, but and then of course, Gog and Magog will show up to finish it all off. But I mean, it's the silliness that just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like,
One funny thing was that I brought up how Muslims also believe, they do not only believe that Jesus was a Muslim, they also believe that Jesus will come back as a Muslim. And I said Muslims believe that or Islam teaches that Jesus will come back and he will break the cross and kill the pigs and fight for Islam. That's what I said in my initial video.
Yeah.
And Sajid's response to that was like, now he's just using loaded language. What Islam teaches is basically that Jesus will come back and declare the truth and declare Christianity wrong. And I thought, wait, what? I'm using loaded language? Dude, I'm quoting Muhammad directly.
It's worse than that, because it says no more jizya will be accepted. What does that mean?
Yeah, it will be abolished, which means the minorities.
Yes.
They will be fought.
It's like, it's worse than, Gondal, you want to share something else?
Yeah, like this one where it's explicitly said that Jesus will descend amongst you. He will break the cross, kill the pigs, and abolish the jizya tax.
Why is he killing the pigs? I never got that.
I don't know, man.
I think Muhammad was offended that Christians eat pigs or something. Like, I don't know.
Just leave the pigs alone.
Because I think that's one thing that distinguishes Christians from Jews, right, and Muslims, is that they eat pig, because the law was fulfilled to the sacrifice of Jesus, which I guess they don't like that for some reason.
Yeah.
So this whole thing about the corruption of the Bible drives me crazy too, because it's so clear that Islam doesn't understand what the Bible is. Like, there's no mention of Pope. The Pope, the Catholic Church was the biggest sect of Christianity for thousands of years, I think even before Islam. Yet there's no mention of a Pope in the Quran. There's no even idea that there's such a thing, right? It seems that Muhammad had a very specific view of Christianity, probably Nestorian Christianity or something, some sort of heterodox, probably like almost like a heretical sect of Christianity that, it says in the Quran, don't say Mary Trinity.
Yeah.
Mary is not part of it. Like, where did that come from?
Nobody says that.
Yeah, like nobody says that, right?
It is so ridiculous. Yeah, the Quran clearly says, it says that Allah will say to Jesus, did you say to the people, take me and my mother as deities besides Allah? And it's funny, nobody says it. No Christian says that. It's like, why does the Quran address it? There are no Christians who say something like that.
Well, what about even the Uzair being the son of Allah?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Who says that? Would you say that?
Yeah, it's a very general statement. It says that Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah, and Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah. May Allah destroy them both. Like, which Jew says that? We don't even have any historical records of anyone saying that ever. It's like, it's dumb.
I love that statement. That statement is such a checkmate right there for Muslims, because in the same exact statement, it uses the literal meaning of Son of God for Jesus. So you can't even say it's metaphorical.
Yeah.
It's saying, they say he's literally the Son of God, and Jews say, so unless you're going to say the first half of the sentence is literal, the second half of the sentence is metaphorical. It means like a father or something. Like, what? It's like it's so clear. It's talking about literal Son of God, right?
There is even a hadith that's funny. There's even a series of hadith which mention that whole thing again, in which Muhammad describes that on the day of judgment, Allah will bring the Jews, or he will call the Christians, and it will say, "Did you say that the Messiah is also Allah, or is the Son of Allah, or something like that?" And they will be punished for their saying. And then he will call the Jews, and he will ask them, "Did you say Ezra is the son of Allah? Who told you this?" And he will basically then punish the Jews for saying that. That's what the hadith say, you know.
Yeah, that's it seems like history wasn't a strong point for the author of the Quran.
In fact, I just found this website. It's Dr. Jonathan Brown's website from 2016.
Yeah, he did a response to this, right?
Quran and the Jews, and he actually says that he's generally Jews just don't believe it. And he finds this one instance of it, and that too doesn't really make sense because the Quran is a timeless book for all Jews and all people, so it shouldn't be just limited to one Jewish sect and not mention their correct belief at all. You know, but yeah, it's a very interesting read if you want to go through it. Just sharing this.
Yeah, I did on my blog. I have an article on this very topic. I looked into this in great detail because I do think that this is one of the biggest mistakes in the Quran. But going back to the Christianity thing, again, it's so obvious that, you know, it's obvious to me that Jesus is not God. Bible is not literally true. But it's also obvious to me that whoever wrote the Quran had no idea what the gospel was, right? There's this Injil. There's the Injil. There's no four gospels, but there's no such thing as Injil. There's no gospel. It's actually four gospels. And the very earliest gospel preached the divinity of Jesus. Like Jesus is God. So, you know, it's so wrong from beginning to end. And, you know, my eyes opened up to this after kind of around the time I was doubting Islam. I was looking for content. I started reading and, you know, looking at David Wood's content as well. And he actually made some really good points. For example, one of the points, I think it was from David Wood, is that Jesus doesn't fit into Islamic theology. He makes no sense.
Not at all.
You have all of these prophets, and for some reason, Allah decided, okay, Jesus has no dad. And then just continued the rest of them, everyone else is a dad. But like in Christianity,
Adam and Eve didn't have parents either. Right?
That's what the Quran says, right? That's what the Quran says. But there's a reason for Adam and Eve not having a dad because they're the first humans. What's the reason for Jesus? What's the reason for interrupting the human lineage for Jesus? Yeah. Whereas in Christianity, like the story fits in, like it makes sense. I don't believe it, but at least it's consistent. Like he has no dad. His dad is God. In Islam, he has no dad, and that's just it. He just has no dad.
It's more than he has no dad. He had a virgin birth. He came. He apparently preached something. Nobody knows what he preached. He died. He was he was a complete failure. Nothing authentic is left from him. So why the hell did he come? Why the hell did Allah send him under these very dramatic circumstances?
Actually, that's a good point.
It makes no sense.
Actually, not only that, the other thing that makes me laugh is the way he failed created the biggest false religion in the worship of on mankind, which is Allah's fault. Allah did that. Allah made it look like he was like, if this isn't such a joke by now, like how do people believe this? It's like, yeah, I'm gonna take this religious story that Christians believe and I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna say, yeah, I made him look like he was crucified. Why would you do that
here?
Huh?
I'm just doing some math here because the hadith says there's been 124,000 prophets. How many years? Like, okay, let's do the past 10,000 years. We know, like after the agricultural revolution when human civilization really started, right? Do the math. 10,000 divided by 124,000. Man, these prophets have been coming like raindrops from the sky, and still Allah failed.
None of them was successful. It's very funny when you think about it. We talked about this yesterday with David on our live stream. The Islamic teaching is that there were 124,000 prophets. They were sent to all mankind, and the Quran's message is clearly that Allah never punishes a nation unless He sends a prophet to them to warn them and to tell them, hey, stop disbelief and believe in Allah. So this is the point. It is about justice. Allah sends prophets that warn these people so that they have a chance to believe in the truth. And then Allah Allah who does the whole accounting and punishes them and rewards them. But then if you look at history, you see we have no records at all of any of those prophets appearing and successfully preaching any message anywhere. We do not have any scripture. We have nothing at all. After Muhammad's time, we have 1,400 years with people all around the world again without any messenger, without any prophet who warns them about the truth. So what exactly is the point of that? It makes no sense.
All of the prophets too are all in the Middle East too. That's the other thing.
yeah.
Like we don't find this theology in China, in like anywhere outside of. I mean, obviously it reached there eventually, but like you said, it's all in one place, right? And someone's saying, I still don't get Jesus coming back to Earth. The reason for Jesus coming back is simply put, is because it says that in Christianity.
Yeah.
So Muhammad was taking as many things as like what's the point of killing Jesus on the cross? There's no point, except that's part of Christianity. So he had to somehow include that into Islam, which again makes no sense.
Yeah, somehow what did Jesus do? Jesus called the Jews to worship one God. He was like, "Hey guys, worship Allah, worship Allah."
But that's what they did. They worship one God already.
Yeah,
right? That's a good point.
It's redundant. I feel Allah is very redundant and inefficient. I just did some math. So if you divide 124,000 by, let's say, 10,000 years, you get the figure of 12.4. So there should be a prophet every 12.4 years for the past 10,000 years. This is the back of the envelope calculation, but holy.
That's crazy.
Oh, and none in the last 1,400 years.
Yeah, because Muhammad's the last one, right?
A prophet should be sent to every nation. Before Muhammad, prophets were sent to all different nations. Only Muhammad was supposedly, according to himself, only Muhammad was sent to the entire world. All the other prophets were sent to their own people. So
there's local prophets, national and international prophets.
Yeah. It should be international assembly of prophets or something.
That's another interesting point. There's a contradiction between there's two things here mentioned. One is that there's a prophet sent to every nation, or a messenger or whatever. Then there's also another statement that if you didn't get the message, and a lot of Muslims make this into like a majority thing, that if you didn't get the message, then you're excused. Whereas, well, if Allah did his job properly, then why would there be like holes in the... It's like you're creating like a postal service, you're God, yet you fail to deliver your message to like a bunch of people. Like what you created this, you created a video game and it's full of bugs. Like half of the levels don't work. You can never reach some of the like there's some diamonds you have to get to, but like you can never get to them, right? The developer made it impossible or something.
He sent 124,000 patches to update the bug.
Yeah, and then but yet you have Muslims, especially like Hamza Yusuf style Muslims, that say that the majority of non-Muslims are not kafirs. That's what they say. They say the majority of non-Muslims are not kafir. Why? What does kafir mean? Someone that denies the truth willingly and knowingly. So like we would be probably would be kafir because we know Islam. Yeah. But apparently, like your grandma, or some white lady that lives in New York, even though she knows about Islam, even though she's heard of Prophet and she doesn't like Islam, she would not be kafir supposedly.
What the hell is the point?
This is kind of unfair to us who did hear about Islam, right? So for example, if I'm living far away, and I never heard about Islam, I can party and do whatever I want in this life and still go to heaven in the afterlife. But if there's somebody who's heard of Islam, well, shit, now you have to accept it or you're screwed.
Well, this thing comes up with Christianity too, because people say, then what's the point of giving the message? With Islam, though, there is a hadith that saes you'll be tested on the Day of Judgment. Remember that one? So, like, Allah fixed his bugs in the afterlife.
God, I'm still stuck on the whole thing. 124,000 patches. It's a good analogy. Well, the funny thing is, the Quran actually, the Quran completely messes up its whole message because it doesn't get this whole thing right. The whole, being just and holding people accountable for knowing and rejecting the Quran. The Quran makes different approaches, and it tells Muhammad that he has to warn everybody, and those who were warned have no choice but to obey. And then it says after Muhammad is unsuccessful, the Quran says There is nothing you can do, O Prophet. If Allah wanted them to believe, they would believe. But what the hell does that mean, man? And what does that mean? What does believing mean? What does believing entail? Believing means, if I believe in Islam, that means I have been consciously, cognitively, knowingly convinced that Islam is true, which is why I decided, okay, hey, you know what? It makes sense. I believe in Islam. Okay, I am now a Muslim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and so on. So this is what I would do. If that means believing. Believing means being convinced that it is the truth. If it is in Allah's hands, if Allah can decide whether I believe or not, doesn't that mean that it is in Allah's hands whether I'm convinced or not? How is that my fault? If I do not believe, if it simply seems absurd to me, and this is the truth, this is what it is. And Muslims come here doubting our motives, but I say very honestly and very clearly to you, I simply do not believe that Islam is true. I simply believe that it is absurd. I believe it is stupid, which is why I make fun of it. I think it is dangerous and wrong, which is why I reject it and criticize it. If I did believe that it was true, if I only had a doubt that it was possibly true, I would not make fun of it. I would acknowledge it and believe in it. And according to the Quran, if Allah wanted me to believe, then I would believe. So how does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, Allah needs to be able to take a little bit of a joke. He is the creator of the fucking universe. So if you make fun of it, it's not the end of the world. He'll get over it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can get over the people making fun of me on YouTube, and you can, I'm sure the creator of the fucking universe doesn't need to get butthurt over a few insignificant Homo sapiens, joking around at the end of the day, right? Like, I mean, yes, but exactly true. If you did believe, you don't just believe it's false, it's false. There's not even a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, when people ask us, is there any chance of us going back to Islam? I mean, theoretically, but
Zero.
how? Like,
it's too silly and too dumb. Like, it's straight up like not trying to be condescending, but it is borderline low IQ bullshit. That is what it is, man. I'll be straight up, like, you can't make this stuff up.
Absolutely. I see no reason why I would ever convert or revert back to Islam. It's just so. I am completely convinced that it is complete bullshit. There is no. I see no possibility of ever converting back to Islam.
And it's not like, to me, like, now Islam, when I think about Islam, in my head, it occupies the same space as Scientology, Mormonism, FLDS. Yeah, man, because it is equally bad. Or like
there is this new religious movement that I was kind of interested in for fun, which is called Realism. It's this guy who claims to have communicated with some divine beings, aliens, who actually came far in the past and who brought humans to the earth and brought them a message. And they were known as the Elohim, and they will come back to save us and to give us extremely advanced knowledge and technology once we humans achieve complete peace, and once we stop hating and fighting each other. That's his message. And his whole religion, his whole cult is basically just people fraternizing, coming together and having sex and being totally open and peaceful and stuff like that. And I look at that guy, and he has this strange haircut, like he's bald on top and has hair on the sides, and he says he communicates with aliens. And I feel like, dude, that's the same. That's just like Muhammad to me.
Yeah.
I want to respond to this comment, Abdul Gondal. I'll let you respond to this. Low IQ bullshit, but very intellectual people believe in that. Explain that to the Abdullahs. It's funny that he's using the word, he's Muslim, and he's using the word Abdullahs as a slur, which is a slur against Muslims.
You don't do that.
Like, are you encouraging us to call people? I don't even do that because I think it's disrespectful. I mean, I was telling one of my mods.
My comment, and what I mean by low IQ is the ideas and the set of ideas contained in the Islamic theology are very right. Now, I'm not saying that every Muslim is low IQ or terribly and not smart. No, what happens with smart people is compartmentalization of knowledge, where you store your religious beliefs is in a different part of the brain, so you don't really look at them or analyze them with the same rigor that you do the world around you. So you'll see, like I actually know cosmologists with PhDs, astronomers who believe the Earth is 6,000 years old, right? And they'll be working for NASA. You'll have Muslim doctors, Muslim neuroscientists who will try to explain to you that genies possessing you are real, right? So what Sam Harris said, religion can make sane people believe in things that only lunatics could believe on their own. And that's the point that I'm getting to.
Yes, we're not saying Muslims are low IQ. We're saying that these things are, if you were presented these things, like Apostate Prophet just presented the most ridiculous religion. Abdullah Gondal's done this on his Facebook. He's taken an Islamic story of Muhammad speaking to the genie in the cave. Sorry, not the genie, the angel in the cave. And he changed the words to say Zenu, the great god Zenu, sent this message to this prophet. I forgot the prophet's name or whatever. and everyone's laughing at it until they get to the end. They're like, oh, I changed the word Zenu to Allah. And, and it's the same thing. It's the Islamic story of revelation or whatever. But like when you present it to it in a different context, you'll laugh at it. But when you present it to it as, under the guise of childhood indoctrination, it's very difficult to let go of that. Right. Okay, I'm going to share your screen, Gondal, and then we'll jump to the slides.
But this is something that I wrote kind of like a mockery, but just switching the words around. And it's basically literally changing the words of the Quran verses. If you look at it, chapter 16, verses 101 to 109. And when you
zoom in a bit?
Yeah, for sure.
Control plus on the keyboard. Yeah, there you go. Okay, thanks.
So Zenu knows best, this where Allah is and all that. But when you read it this way, and you think about it, and then you realize, holy shit, this is actually really terrible, hateful, and the way it's written.
Can you read it?
So when we substitute a command in place of another, Zenu knows best what he reveals. They say, you are making it up, but most of them don't know. Hey, the holy robot has brought it down from your Lord. Truthfully, in order to stabilize those who believe and as guidance and good news for those who submit. We are all well aware that they say it is a human being who is teaching him, but the tongue of who they allude to is foreign. Well, this is in clear English tongue.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Those who do not believe in Zenu's revelations, Zenu will not guide them, and for them is a painful punishment. It is those who do not believe in Zenu's revelations who fabricate falsehood. These are the liars. Whoever renounces faith in Zenu after having believed, except for someone who is compelled while his heart rests securely in faith. But whoever willingly opens up his heart to disbelief, upon them falls the wrath of Zenu. And for them is a tremendous torment. That is because they have preferred the worldly life to the hereafter, and because Zenu does not guide the people who refuse. It is they who Zenu has sealed their brains and their ears and their eyes. It is they who are heedless. There's no doubt in the hereafter they will be the losers.
At least you got the brain part right instead of the heart. It's because the Quran says heart and you say brain. That's actually accurate.
But yeah. When you do it like this, you realize, oh boy, it's terrible.
I'm crying, laughing here.
You know what's funny? You should actually show this to a regular Muslim who doesn't really know much about the contents of the Quran and tell him and show him how absurd and how ridiculous this is. That'd be funny.
I mean, that's the point. I mean, the funny thing is, just one last thing before we get to the slides. Like Surah Fa-Qaf, that whoever wrote it, I'm not going to mention, that was the point of it, is to make you realize like how stupid the Quran is. And of course, Farid was like criticizing Surah Fa-Qaf, saying, this doesn't make sense, crushing and then hanging. Dude, that's what the Quran does. It's saying we'll squeeze them and we'll choke them and we'll like burn them, and like it's so ridiculous. It's a joke, right? And so when you actually try, sometimes you try to help people to see how silly it is. they'll make fun, they'll attack
Yeah,
that. This is
just
dumb.
quickly over that, like he was making fun of it that, oh, why does it talk about chickens and food and stuff, right? Well, why does the Quran talk about the teen and the fig, the olive and the branch, or start swearing by random cities just like this in the surah? Then there's another one where why does it repeat knock a knocking? The Quran is full of phrases: winnow a winnowing, blow a blowing, crack a cracking, shake a shaking. So these are actually, so the way it was set up was a parody. Quite like, I'll just read some words like from the Quran. You'll see dakkan dakka, kidu kaida, saffan saffa, right? Line upon line, destruction. So when you do this surah actually demonstrated the Quran as a parody very beautifully. But yeah, there's a few words on that.
All right, so the last slide that we left off on had to do with evil eye, and we talked about like how ridiculous this is and how silly this is, and so we won't repeat that. We'll go to the next one. Like, do you want to talk about the backstory of this breastfeeding adults thing?
So long story short, there used to be a guy, as we can see, whose name was, sorry, this lady Sahla came to the Prophet and said, "O Messenger of Allah, I see signs of displeasure in this face of Abu Hudhayfa when Salim entered upon me." So Abu Hudhayfa is her husband and Salim is this child. The Prophet said, "Breastfeed him." And then the lady's like, "How can I breastfeed him when he's a grown man?" So when Muhammad said breastfeed him, the lady's first instinct is like, what you mean, like, what? And she's confused. The Messenger of Allah then smiled and said, "I know that he's a grown man," like a very naughty, kinky smile. So she did that. So she did that. Then she came to the Prophet and said, "I have never seen any signs of displeasure after that." So, I mean, okay, so the guy apparently you feel is gonna be horny towards you. So the way to fix it is make him suck your tit.
But then even the second part doesn't make any sense. Like after that, his husband's not jealous anymore. Oh no, she's not gonna cheat on me with Salim. Is it Salim or Salim?
Yes.
Salim, right? He's not gonna cheat on me because he already sucked his breast. What? Like,
what's funny is Aisha took this as a precedent for all men that she wanted to see that are not al-mahram. She can make them like this. So there's a hadith where she started asking her other sisters who were lactating to call all the men to go breastfeed her 404.
Did they mean to express the milk like in a bottle or something? They don't mean literally like,
yes. So that's another controversy. Some scholars said that it was to put it in a cup and then give it to the kid.
Okay, the adult, not kid. Yeah,
adult. Sorry, but like, what's the point with that? Does that change? It's like so complex for no reason. So then Sheikh Albani said no, it actually means literally sucking from the tit. And then there was this huge controversy on Twitter recently with our beloved Muhammad Hijab, the guy with the most modest name. He has hijab in his name, like, and he's talking about. And then there was a huge controversy where people are saying, well, how can the Prophet say this? And why is Sheikh Albani saying that grown men can suck on women's tits? And there was a fatwa, I remember, from, I think, Al-Azhar or something, where if a woman wants to work in a company where there's men around, she should breastfeed her co-workers or something. Jeez. So, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
it is so weird. I never really got into this whole breastfeeding issue in Islam. Although I looked at so many things. I looked at so many embarrassing things, so many nonsensical things within Islam. I feel like I kind of just went around this whole breastfeeding thing because it sounds so absurd to me. I still feel like, wait, this can't be real. Like there must be some catch to it. There must be some weird something to this, right? I mean.
I almost like, to me, this is almost like as obscure, even though this is in like one of the main collections of hadith, it almost feels like it's so obscure because nobody would ever do this in today's time. At least I would think so. What do you think, Gondal?
I mean, this is what Muhammad Hijab came out and said to some other Muslim guy, said, okay, can I suck your wife's tits?
Yeah, something to that effect, right? I mean, I was just laughing when I saw that because he was giving them the same treatment he used to give us, like, like those vulgar framings of like, can I do this? Would you let your wife do this and that? Like he's doing the same thing to the Muslims, and I was just like, they're laughing and clapping. I'm like, there you guys go. Now you know what we had to deal with all this time, right? This is what we're dealing with.
So there's this one hadith where it's really funny, where Aisha takes this one incident and then projects it as a common theme or practice that should be maintained. So here, Salama said to Aisha, a young boy who is at the threshold of puberty comes to you. So Aisha was hanging out with this kid or a guy who was about almost mature. And then she says, I don't like that he should come to you. So then Aisha suddenly said, don't you see in Allah's messenger a model for you? And she also said, the wife of Abu Hudhaifa comes to me and he's a grown man. And there's something that rankles in the mind of that kid. Whereupon Allah's messenger said, suckle him. So Aisha used that incident from before as a projection to set this tradition of suckling any guy who wants to come see her, to making him her mahram. But yeah.
I don't understand why Muslim society doesn't just solve the problem of mahram by just opening places where women just breastfeed everybody, so they can get rid of the whole the barriers of
And what's one other thing I wanted to make sure about this controversy we don't miss out is these verses. There were verses revealed about breastfeeding adults that makes you haram for marriage. There were first 10 sucklings that made it haram, then it was reduced to 5, and then the verses don't exist in the Quran. But this is numerously reported in almost all the earliest literature, even up to Imam Malik's Muwatta. He said that people were reciting the verses at times as well. And I mean, these are in Sahih Muslim as well. I just want to just add my screen.
So these are, someone's saying these are obscure hadith, but no, they're not obscure hadith, right?
I'll find some more of it. Right now, I just want to show you that this is in Sahih Muslim.
I have to say, I do not think that it works like that. I do not think that by sucking on the tits of a woman, you will stop having sexual desires for her, and thereby.
It makes it haram.
I have to show you this one. Yeah.
But how does I still don't understand how like you're not allowed to show you're not allowed to be how do you do this when you can't be alone with a woman and you can't that's her aura. I don't get it. It's weird, right? Like you
don't understand the wisdom of Islam.
I don't understand how you implement this. That's what I'm confused about. Do you have to like blindfold them so they can't see what they're sucking?
Okay, so this one is
you have to lower your gaze, right? Like, okay, hold on, let me share your screen again.
This one is legit a real life example that happened in Omar's time, and I was like, how do people believe this? So this is from Imam Malik's Muwatta, one of the earliest hadith collections, one of the strongest ones and authentic ones per Muslim corpus. Here it says that Yahya related me from Malik. A man came to Abdullah ibn Omar, where judgments were being given, and he asked about the suckling of an older person. Abdullah ibn Omar replied, a man came to Omar ibn al-Khattab and said, I have a slave girl and I used to have intercourse with her. My wife went to her and suckled her. When I went to the girl, my wife told me to watch out because she had suckled her. So Omar told him to beat his wife and then go to his slave girl because kinship was only established by suckling of the young.
Dude,
what? He just contradicted the other hadith.
I mean, just trying to make sense of this.
It is such a mess, man. I don't know.
It's like a TV series. You can make an anime out of it.
You gotta be careful. I suckled that one. It's like...
This is I mean, you highlighted this before, but I'm just gonna elaborate a little bit on this because it is actually quite comical. The wife of was it Ibn Omar was jealous. Was it Ibn Omar's wife? Sorry, I'm trying. No, it was a man. A man came to Omar. Okay, so basically, it was some random person that his wife was jealous that he was screwing his slave, and she didn't like it. So her fix was within the Islamic framework to make that make that slave her daughter by suckling her, right? And therefore now that slave is now like his daughter, but that means his basically his daughter is a slave. Like, it doesn't even make, none of this makes any
None
sense.
of it makes.
It's so contradictory from every angle.
I give props to that lady's creativity to think this whole thing.
Have you guys seen that? Like, someone posted on ex-Muslim Reddit the halal workaround to having a boyfriend, where you take the lady as your slave, and then you free her, and then she becomes like your wife or something. It's like this big workaround you can do to have like premarital sex in Islam without actually marrying the woman.
Dude. Yeah.
Because
it would technically not work within the Islamic legal system, because you're not technically allowed to out of nowhere enslave a free person.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah,
you need a war. That's the problem, right?
Yeah, you have to go to war and then enslave the enemy.
Or you have to find a slave market. That's
yeah,
halal.
and buy slaves that are already slaves. Yeah.
This is kind of the last thing I'm going to share about the breastfeeding thing. Then we'll move over from it. But this one's hilarious. So this is again from Imam Malik's Muwatta. I'll zoom in quickly for you guys. And here, what we're looking at is the same incident being narrated, but then Imam Malik has some commentary and some other women saying this. So she gave him a few drinks. Aisha, al-Mu'mineen, took that as a precedent for whatever men she wanted to be able to come see her. So I'm not saying this. This is in the Islamic hadiths that Aisha was thinking that you can start breastfeeding any man you want to make your mahram.
How does this work? I'm so confused.
So she ordered her sister to make a spoon and the daughters of her brother to give milk to whichever man she wanted to be able to come in to see her.
I love seeing the confusion in Abdullah Samir's face. He's like genuinely struggling to understand.
I don't understand. I'm so lost. Like, what's going on? Like,
so
how does this square with Islamic modesty and strict segregation and no premarital sex? Like, I'm so lost. And like, I don't get it. Like, was this actually happening?
Yeah, and then the other wives were literally mad, and they're like, "No way, that was just an exception for that one guy." So that also shows that that one guy was not into the cup feeding; it was a literal feeding. And Aisha took that as a precedent, sending random men to her sister to go suck my sister's titty.
But it says it actually like all the hadith is showing say suckling. It doesn't say express or milk drink. It says suckling. So I don't know if the translation is bad, but that's clear what it means.
I think we have to go to some Islamic scholars together and have to ask them to demonstrate to us how this works. And
that's what Mama Hijab was, I think, trying to argue, right? Isn't it? Like
exactly.
Like how can you please show us how this works?
Well, he was saying he was so these. I think what happened was the Islamic scholar the Muslim scholar was defending it, and he was like, "Okay, well, prove your point." Like, you know.
Yeah. Can I suck your wife's tits to make her my mahram? I think that's what he said to him.
I don't know if he said "can I" or would you, something like, you know, you should let her do that or something, right?
I'm pretty sure he said "can I." I think I have a screenshot here somewhere because I used it.
Wait, so saying, "Hey, you want to suck my titties" is like a sunnah?
Oh my God, I don't understand this. I'm just like, I'm so lost because as a Muslim, I never heard any of this. I mean, I read it, but I didn't ponder on it.
Oh, here. Let me
Let
me bring this up here. Share my screen. Here.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Okay, can I suck your wife's tit to make her mahram?
I love how he capitalized it all.
He took a page right out of Aisha's book.
Okay, can I suck your wife's tit to make her mahram?
So he's arguing against it, basically. Like, he thinks it's not allowed, right?
Yeah, he says it's absurd. It should not be what these Islamic what scholars like Albani teach. It is. It is absurd to him, and he's challenging them to think about the logic of that. But of course, their reaction is like, "What the hell is going on with you?"
So this Omar Chatlia, I think, because he's a scholar. I mean, Muhammad Hijab was forced to apologize to him, right?
Something like that.
Well, they basically
blamed it on the men.
They basically compelled him to apologize and to get off Twitter. He hasn't been on Twitter since after this incident. He apologized, left Twitter, and he didn't come back after that. And he also said that he said, "I apologize. I am currently taking some heavy medication because I have back pain or something like that. And this is and that medication makes me say very strange things in public and private." And he blamed it on the medicine, which is just so dumb. It's
Yes, obviously his personality and style to be very I don't know what the word is, vulgar and in your face sort of tactics, eh?
Right now that we're talking about Muhammad hijab, I have to show you another thing that I came across, and this ties into the golden shower thing. And I was shocked to find this myself. I'm like, holy shit, how does this even exist? I'm just trying to go on my Facebook. Perfect. And this is about, okay, I'm going to phrase it. Sahabas were vampires. They would drink blood. And they're not just vampires, they were urine drinking blood vampires. So I'm going to quickly share my screen from my Facebook. And I had this post a few days ago, and I was even shocked. Like, this is what blew my mind. Like, completely blew my mind. We've heard of those people drinking his spit and rubbing his spit infested stuff. So if you go to this link here, Islam Web, okay, Islamic website. Question: the authenticity of the hadith stating that people drank the urine and blood of the Prophet. What WTF is what you're gonna say, right? And it says it's one day Muhammad had cupping them to him, and this one guy came, and Muhammad said, "Go throw out the blood," but the guy took the blood and drank it. And then Muhammad learned about this.
You want to explain what cupping is?
Cupping is, you put these cups on your skin and you make a puncture mark, so it kind of sucks some blood out. Hijama, so it's very popular Middle Eastern, and some athletes do it too. But the evidence for that to help is not that conclusive scientifically, but it's an old kind of like treatment that's been used for thousands of years.
Kind of like a homeopathic treatment.
Clean the blood kind of thing. So in another narration, the Prophet supplicated to Allah for him not to be touched by the hellfire, and wiped his head. So this guy who drank Muhammad's blood, Muhammad validates the act by praying for him and telling he won't go to hell. And then it's reported by Daraqutni, Al-Hakim, and all these names. And Al-Haythami, rahimahumullah, says, consider the chain of narrators of this hadith to be a sahih one, and the other has graded as Hasan, so it's sound. So it's a sound narration. Moving on to the next one. Another one that the Prophet ﷺ he was urinating in a container that would be under his bed. This is a very common practice in the Middle and the Dark Ages as well, back in time. He didn't want to get up at night again and again. When he asked his Abyssinian woman or slave servant, where is it? Because he found the container empty. She just told him that I drank your piss. So, and then in another narration, Ibn Jurayj reports that Muhammad actually prayed for this woman to have good health and whatnot. And there are a bunch of these hadith. Now, what's funny is I'm going to go another Islamic site just for those who are curious. There's not one, there's not two, there's a bunch of them, and they're authenticated by Imam Suyuti, Tabrani, and they go into a whole detail. Anyways.
I have to say one thing to be fair. There is some controversy around this. I remember looking up Islam Q&A, which is a very notorious website for Islamic questions. But when you look up this question on their website, they have a fatwa on this matter where they say that that certain reports are sound, but that the conclusion cannot be true because drinking urine and drinking blood is always haram, even if it belongs to the Prophet. That's what they say, for example. But other sources like these say, well, the sources say otherwise, so therefore it seems like this is okay. So there is some disagreement among these different Muslim sources, but you will find these crazy sources everywhere in the world of Islamic believers that say certain things like that the blood, the sweat, and the urine of the Prophet are holy, and things like that. And I heard that myself in real life when I was a Muslim in religious environments. So it is really strange.
Yeah, I was. I think I think this is not something that would affect Muslims' day-to-day lives anymore, because obviously the Prophet's dead. You can't touch his blood or whatever.
They preserved his
So
hair, but
it's a
not
moot
his
point,
urine.
right? But yeah, you're right. In Sufi, yeah, here's a list of scholars. Ibn al-Hajar al-Asqalani, Imam Suyuti, Imam Ghazali, Ali Qari, Ibn Hibban, Haytani, al-Manat. There's so many scholars, actually, Islamic scholars, that have said this. I think this is later on. This is what you call cognitive dissonance, because what do you do when you have two contradictory things? Like, one is just like I'm still trying to get my head around how this adult breastfeeding thing works, because on one hand, it's haram to see a woman naked, obviously. Like I don't. It's not clicking in my mind. So as a Muslim, I'd just be like, it's one of those memes with the red buttons, right? The two red buttons. It's like, which one is it? Like, you can't figure it out because it's a contradiction, right?
Well, this is how you do it, Abdullah. This is how you do it. Like, the woman sits there, she gets ready, and then you go there, and you're like, okay, do you have it ready? Is your breast ready? Where is it? Here. Okay. That's how you go. That's how you go there. Okay, I got it.
This is like a
That's how you go
this
about
could
it.
be like a section on like a porn website or something. Adult breastfeeding. It's so strange. Oh my god. Geez.
Yeah. It's really strange. All the kind of stuff that we can get into when we talk about Islam.
Should we continue with the slides?
Yeah, we can continue with the slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to make a point before we continue, actually, which I missed. I had in my notes to discuss about the free will, which is that, we're talking about free will, and we're talking about, how this seemingly contradiction in the Islamic scripture that says that Allah, on one hand, yudillu may yasha wa yu'izzu may yasha. He's the one who, guides and misguides. He honors and dishonors. So, like, on one hand, it seems like Allah is the one that's deciding. On the other hand, you have free will. And this is something that confused a lot of Muslims. Like, a lot of Muslims get confused by this, because I don't think you can rationally, like, solve this thing. It is a contradiction.
Yeah.
From my perspective, what I would just add to that is that if free will is, like, why is free will such a good thing that you would, okay, so according to Islamic theology, Allah decided it's so important that it's worth sending people to hell. If you were creating like a race of robots or something, right, and you're going to condemn them to eternal suffering, like you have a virus that you inject in the consciousness that makes them suffer, whatever suffering means to them, like, how is that worth it on the grand scale of things? That and we're talking about eternal suffering. So if any calculation you do, the majority going to hell, you are a cruel, evil, nasty monster for doing this, because you are sending more people to eternal suffering. So on the whole, you're like a nasty piece of shit, because why would you do that? Why is it, like, if you ask me, is free will, would I rather just not have free will rather than potentially going to hell? I would say, like, what's the point of it? Like, why? Like, it's unjust to do that. It's completely immoral to allow such a thing,
So
What do you have over there?
Here you have this thing. I thought about that so often. Like, to make it very simple to look at, you just have this. This is the creation. This is a path that splits in two. You are a human created, and you are right here at this point right now. Think about it. Allah creates you. Allah is all-knowing, almighty, and He's good, the highest good there is. Allah creates you, and before He even created you, before He planned anything, before He even intended to create you, He knew exactly, because He is all-knowing and almighty, that if He did create you, you would eventually use your free will in the wrong way and end up going to hell, where He would punish you forever because you misused your free will. You used your free will in the wrong way. Despite that, He did create you and put you here. And as a result of Him creating you, as a result of Him creating the world, the life, the hell, the punishment, and creating you, He condemned you to eternal hellfire forever. Now, you can argue that you have free will. Supposedly, that is the teaching. You have free will, and Allah gave you free will. He gave you the free will to choose. But it does not matter. You can always go back again and say, okay, you have free will, but Allah knew exactly what you would do with that free will if He did design you, if he did go ahead and create you, he knew exactly that you would misuse that free will and take the left path and go to hell and go and burn there forever. And you can again say, but yeah, he gave you free will. Well, okay, yes, he did. But he knew exactly that if he gave you free will, you would eventually use that free will in the wrong way and go to hell. So, this is just one example. You have to think, if Allah creates life and death, the test, and the afterlife and hell, then it is inevitable that millions, billions of humans will be subjected to this and will take the wrong path because of their free will, which Allah created knowingly, and will go to hell and burn there forever. So Allah knowingly and willingly created an entire species, He created billions of people so they burn in hell forever, just so he could also create some people who would worship him forever. Think about the absurdity of that. Think about how messed up that is for a second.
Yeah, I think, honestly, the hell issue is something that there is no real fix for it, because I know a lot of Muslims, the best fix that they come up with is basically that most non-Muslims are not kafirs. That's the best. Of course, this is not really in line with Islamic theology, because you're saying nobody's kafir. And it creates another absurdity, like the Hamza use of, there is no kafir makes no sense too, because how can anyone, let's be honest, how can anyone know it's true and still reject it? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. He's saying a kafir is someone that knows it's true, like actually knows, actually believes in Allah, like kind of like the typical Satan. Satan knows Allah is real, yet he still refuses to obey Allah. Like he sees Allah, he knows Allah is real, and he's saying that's the real kafir.
I'm sorry, such a person does not exist unless he's.
How can such a person exist? If you know hell is real, and you still reject it, you're just crazy.
Yeah,
you're broken. You're not. Your intellect is not functioning, because we've evolved. I mean, there's no such thing as evolved in Islam, but we have pain avoidance, we have survival tendencies for a reason. So that's what Islam tries to use against us. It tries to use a fear of suffering to make us submit to this false idea, right?
Yeah. Even if I was completely selfish, even if I completely just looked out for my own good, it would be the dumbest idea ever to know that hell exists, that I will go to hell, and then to choose to disbelieve and go to hell. I mean, even if I was a selfish pig, it would be the dumbest thing to do, to go to hell.
But
why would I do that?
You are a selfish pig talking about Islam all day. How dare you? But the thing is, yeah, like honestly speaking, it was the same sort of concern I had when I left Islam. Like, okay, I'm just gonna keep it to myself, because I don't want I'm gonna take a risk for myself, but I'm not gonna misguide my kids. I don't want my kids to go to hell. Like, you worry about your own kids more than you worry about yourself if you're like a normal parent.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, again, how we evolved. You want your put it bluntly, you want your genes to be passed on, because if you didn't, you wouldn't exist, because your parents wouldn't have given a shit about you either. We all give shits, because that's how that's how the species continues. So I don't want my kids to suffer. I don't want my wife to suffer. So I wanted to look into it. But now, like, yeah, it's so obviously false, right? Abdullah, you wanted to share, Gondal, you wanted to share something?
Yeah, so I came across, when talking about the contradictory, weird, immodest, modest thing with the Islamic theology. So there was this idea that you've probably heard, that slave women used to be bare-breasted to differentiate them from free women, right? Now, mostly you'll come across that, okay, we don't know. But I actually came across this statement on this Islam website. And this guy actually asked the same question, where this guy, he said, Imam Malik bin Anas strongly disapproved the behavior of slave women. And he actually said this to the Sultan. He escalated that they should have their titties exposed to the Sultan, right? So then this guy goes on like, no. But then they ask that this does not contradict the fact that during the lifetime, the generation followed the Tabis. So maybe the Tabis, those pious generations, were having these women walking around naked. Then he says, if you mean the authenticity of attributing it to Imam Malik, then it is authentically attributed to him. And then he goes on, who listened and who passed it on. Point being is that if an Imam Malik-like scholar of that caliber can be asking stuff like this to be done, shows how lopsided and how stupidly confused the theology is, where you're covering the women and you want to put them in hijab, but then you have breast adult feeding, and then you have slaves walking around bare chested and whatnot. None of it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a nice image, but it's not good. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is something that I remember shocked me as a Muslim,
Yeah.
that I had Hizb ut-Tahrir. So this is a funny thing about Hizb ut-Tahrir. Because of this, Hizb ut-Tahrir considers pornography halal. I mean, because of this and other
Really? Are you
reasons.
kidding me?
Yeah. Hizb ut-Tahrir, in the official fatwa, unless you changed it now, but when I was in Islam, Muslim, they consider it's an image. And when I was arguing with one Muslim guy about this, he's like, don't you know the slave women used to go around bare chested in Medina? I'm like, wait, what? Again, it was like one of those moments that I'm like, how? What? Like, that doesn't make sense. Right? Like, and apparently, like, this is true. The slave women. Now, this fatwa is arguing this is not the case.
But Imam Malik says it was the case.
What does Imam Malik know? Who is he? Who is this Imam Malik? Who is this? Yeah. I never heard of no Imam Malik.
What I find very interesting is one of those things that when you go into the topic of the hijab, I made a video about this, about the origin of the hijab, and if you read the tafsirs, the early tafsirs about how the hijab came into existence, and how basically Umar was disturbed by the wives of the Prophet just going to the toilet without covering themselves, without hiding themselves, and he was disturbed, and he kept bugging Muhammad about this. Was like, hey, tell the women to cover up and all that. And it's a completely absurd story where Muhammad is like, yeah, just come on, leave me alone, man, leave me alone. And in the end, he's like, okay, Allah revealed that the women should cover up. And but in the tafsir, in Ibn Kathir's tafsir, when he describes this stuff, he says, if I'm not mistaken, he says that that the women were the Muslim women were to cover up so that they can be distinguished from the disbelievers and the prostitutes, or something like that. That's what he says.
Mm-hmm. The Quran says that, actually, literally that, where say keep your wives home so they don't get molested.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Oh, and when he married, what was that? The daughter of the chief of Khaybar, I think Safiya, right? He exchanged her for 7 slaves, and then the people were confused if she's gonna be his slave or wife. So they're waiting if he's gonna put the veil on her or not. So if the veil was not on, she wouldn't have been his wife, apparently.
Yeah. So this is true too. That there's like what AP was saying, that there's some classism in the hijab. Like it was considered like, the slaves went around, probably according to Imam Malik and others, bare chested. That was a sign of, it contradicts with the idea that, I don't know. To me, as a Muslim, I was like, it seemed very unjust. It seemed very degrading. I mean, it is degrading to a woman to have to go through that. Which woman wants to go around bare chested in a society where you're not bare chested? I'm not talking about in Africa where everybody does that. I mean, okay, like some tribes in Africa, that's the norm. We're talking about to humiliate you, you're gonna make them walk around with the chest showing. I mean, that's not right,
Yeah. It's nasty.
Okay, so should we go back to the slides?
Yeah.
I'm just going to read the super chats quickly. There's a couple of quick super chats. According to the New Testament studies, this is from Stop Scamming Man. Has 7 books pushed. They didn't believe. Oh, yeah. This is awesome. But Ehrman is honestly, when I started studying But Ehrman, like his content and reading his books, it made Islam. I don't understand how Muslims can be fans of But Ehrman, because it makes Islam look worse. Like when you study what he says, because like the early Christians, the Jews didn't believe in hell. They didn't believe in the Jews allow alcohol, like kosher alcohol. Like none of this seems to be the same religion. Like it's supposed to be, according to Islam, it's all the same religion. But like you see these ideas gradually evolve, right? And I know many Christians would disagree with this idea of low Christology versus high Christology, and how, in Mark, there's what he calls low Christology, which is that Jesus became God at, when he died, basically, right? He was raised to heaven when he died. But then by John, he's God in the beginning. He's with God, right? So you can see this evolution of, higher and higher Christology. Now, of course, Christians have the responses to that where they say, no, it's always the same Christology. All the Gospels say the same thing. But he's looking at it from a different perspective, from his perspective. And, I agree. You see that when the virgin birth comes, I forget whether it was Luke or Matthew, it's in the middle. That's when Muhammad took it from. He took basically not the earliest ideas, but something that evolved in Christianity, whatever I guess he heard, and he made that part of Islam. So, I do think this is, but Ehrman is a gem, studying him, it just gives a lot more perspective on Islam, in my opinion. It shows, unfortunately, he doesn't make comments on Islam itself. I would love it for him to say that Islam has problems in its preservation, and like the way he does with the Bible. I think he doesn't want to get canceled. Maybe, I don't know. He has at some points actually now been a little bit more upfront and said things against the Quran's preservation being true, but on his blog, and it's closed to members only, and it's not like he's going on YouTube and saying it. But anyways, that's not a specialty.
I actually had some communication with Bart Ehrman. I actually texted with him a while back and was thinking about inviting him onto my channel. Maybe even having an in-person discussion interview. I was just thinking I couldn't really decide what exactly I should do with him, what exactly I should talk about with him. And I was thinking maybe I could devise something that would connect the goal of my channel, which is the whole Islam analysis, with his work and his criticism of Christianity. And if I can come up with something, I would like to invite him, because he told me he would appear on the channel. But yeah, well, I'm still thinking about that. I could actually do that.
I think it's a great idea. Like I said, when I've been the stuff I read actually made me even more confident that Islam is false, because you can see the evolution of the theology. So maybe that'd be something worth talking about. Hi AP, any thoughts on having your vids dubbed into, say, Indonesian, Urdu, and Malay?
I got these questions forever since the beginning of my channel. I just don't know how I'm supposed to take care of that. I'm not a very organized person. I'm an extremely disorganized individual. It's very hard for me to take care of my scheduled videos. So it would be extremely hard for me to also take care of subtitling all of my videos in different languages and employing people who subtitle those videos. I don't know.
Okay.
Fair enough. So this was quite the topic, eh?
Yeah. Just one point before we go forward.
Yep.
In the comments, I noticed that they were saying that Imam Malik denounced the bare-chested practice. What I was trying to convey, if I wasn't clear, was he mentioned that the women used to do that in that time, and that he was pissed off that they're doing that. And that quote is authentic. That means that's being used as evidence to show that the Tabi'is did in fact have this happening in their time. That was the whole point. If that was a little confusing, just clearing that up.
All right, next slide.
Jonah gets swallowed by a whale. There's actually a recent story that happened where a diver got swallowed by a whale, and he got spat out at the shore.
He wasn't in there for 3 days, though, was he?
Yeah, no. He actually has a video.
Does it say how long he was in there?
For Jonah, I believe in the hadith and everything, it says he was in there for 3 days, and then he prayed in the belly of the whale. What's that word they say? There's a special prayer of Jonah that he said.
Oh,
I forgot it. They say it when people die, and they repeat a lot of it.
Yeah. I can't remember it either. I lost it.
But anyway, similar to that. Oh, the famous one. This one has caused so much controversy. He was created from a fluid ejected.
You know what's so funny about this thing? Semen from backbones and ribs. I had this debate with Nader Ahmed the first time that I had a science debate with him, and we were basically arguing how the Quran is full of scientific mistakes, and he kept pushing me to bring up this scientific mistake, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to talk about this. I don't care. I want to talk about other things. And he's like, no, ask me about the Siemens from back. I'm like, okay, fine, let's do it. Let's talk about it. And then what he brings up is that the human body, when you actually look at the human body from the bottom, then the place where the semen originates is actually between the backbones and ribs. And so when you look at it from this angle, then it is actually true that it comes from a region that can be described as between the backbones and ribs. So therefore, the Quran is miraculous and accurate. And it's so dumb.
Oh my God!
It is not even accurate. But his entire idea to resort to that, to instead of taking this exactly as it says, to just look at an X-ray and say, "Hey, look! If you look from this angle, then it does look like it comes from between the backbones." And it's so dumb.
I don't like bringing this topic up either because honestly, it's like a dead horse that's been flogged to death. And the Muslim apologists have built up all of these excuses for it, so it's just not. There's so many other things. I think. I mean, this is a clear problem in the Quran, and frankly speaking, if you can't see this is false from this one thing, like we can't. There's nothing to help you. Like, this is like obviously a mistake.
I feel like it's a rule where like the more problematic a Quranic verse is, the more complex its tafsir is.
That's a good one because there's this I forgot his name now, but there's this guy that was on the Flat Earth documentary on Netflix. By the way, it's called Beyond the Curve. I highly recommend everyone watches it. And he actually mentioned, I think his name is Tim, that the more crazy the conspiracy theory, the more the more flawed like the idea is. Like, for example, Flat Earth, the more convoluted the workarounds have to be to make it fit into reality. Right, like the harder you have to work to make it make sense. Obviously, right? I guess because it doesn't fit, right?
Well, are you saying that the Earth is not flat?
It's not flat.
There's the whole idea of the flat Earth in the Quran.
Like the flat Earth in the Quran, I think appeals to Salafis. I mean, a minority of Salafis do believe in flat Earth because otherwise. A lot of these things just don't make sense, like Allah coming down to the lowest heaven every night. How do you make sense with Allah coming down if it's not a flat earth? He can't come down to every different place.
The earth is flat, but Allah is so heavy, he morphs in the geometry of space-time to make it circular.
Oh man, I've never heard that before. You'd make a good apologist.
If the earth is not flat, if the earth is round, then that means that ships go like this on the side of the earth. and that can't be real. That can't be true.
I was actually shocked that the founder of the Bareli school of thought, Imam Ahmad Reza Khan, wrote a book where like he had like 100 points where he had graphs and like diagrams, force diagrams, equations trying to disprove that the earth is flat. And like his logic was if it was circular, the water would spin off the sides. And I'm like, but yeah,
So yeah, back to the slides. Okay, so next one.
Oh yeah, so this one always got me like this is just bizarre. Like a tree whose fruits are like the heads of Satan, and Muhammad mentioned this but a few times in the Quran, and he says, "Indeed, there's a tree issuing from the bottom of the hellfire. Its emerging fruit is as its heads of the devils." And they will eat from it and fill their bellies. Now, I don't understand. How does a tree keep growing in this immense heat and not burn? What is it made out of? Then secondly, what kind of fruit are you looking at? Like spiky, thorny fruit? And like who
Brother,
came up with
the physics of hellfire are different from the physics of this sphere of existence.
As Sheikh Maulana Yasser Al-Qadi put it, it is supra-rational.
The jinns will also go and burn in the hellfire. The jinns are of smokeless fire, and they will go and burn in the hellfire. And it's just you cannot grasp the physics of it. It's just
yes,
different.
but Islamic scholars have an answer. You see, in the hadith, the Prophet said that he felt the coolness of the spittle of the jinn. So therefore, the jinns are made of fire, but they are not fire.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then hell has like different types of fire, because the breath of hell makes the cold, and then also the breath in the summer makes it hot.
See, Islam has all the answers. You're just doubters.
We just-
This one was just weird. Like, so this ties in with a lot of other hadith where Muhammad said the sun rises and sets between the horns of Satan, and he also forbid like praying right before sunset, or and sunrise, something like that.
yes.
Oh
And
yeah, that's the thing. You cannot pray at that time. It's
I
like-
remember this really confused me as a Muslim. I was like,
yeah,
what
same.
the heck?
Same.
Well, like,
when
what
I
does it
started
mean?
praying and I learned the exact rules about it.
You
I was
can't
like,
pray at specific times. And
Why?
my guess is there must have been some religious group that did this and worshipped the sun.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the only
yeah.
thing I can come up with that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I think there was such an explanation. I remember something along those lines. Yeah.
It's just weird, yeah. Rises between the horns of Satan. I guess that's probably an expression. I don't
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
I'm reading a fatwa about this, and it
Mhm.
says some of that is exactly as it is in the wording, that the Satan has horns and it carries the sun out. But, like,
Literally.
I'll share the screen. I mean, it's from Islam Web as well, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Some interpreters of the narration differ regarding the meaning of the horn of Satan. Some said that the meaning is exactly as in the wording, that the sun rises on the horn of Satan or between the two horns. This cannot be questioned. It's a matter of the unseen.
Yeah.
But I don't get, if you're worshiping Allah, why does it matter when the sun
Yeah.
rises? I mean,
I mean,
it's just
it
weird.
rises in the horns and it sets in a pond. Yo, this guy was a wackadoodle dude.
It's so weird, right?
You know how Islam has all these things, these extremely strict rules about the symbolism of things, how you're not supposed to bow down in front of certain things. Your prayer is interrupted and invalid if something passes in front of you, and all this stuff. It's just so weird. Like these.
And then
these
about to a
very-
cube.
Yeah. It's just a bunch of very strange rules. Like, why can't you just shut the hell up and just worship Allah if that's what you're doing, instead of worrying about all the, I don't know, washing yourself in this way and that way, and praying in this way and that way, saying certain words, having your prayers invalidated if you accidentally fart. I mean, seriously, it's really strange.
So with the sunset one, I just want to quickly show you that these hadith are authentic.
Oh, hold on. Let me
Yeah.
share your screen 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
So this is actually from Sahih Hadith from Jami' as-Saghir, and it's classified fully authentic. It says, where does the sun set? Muhammad asked the companion, and he doesn't, I don't know. And Muhammad then explicitly says that it says in a pond of warm water, like straight up. Okay, this is Albani's book, I think. And this is the verse that they're talking about, and the hadith actually uses the same wording in the Quranic verse.
Wait, hold on a second. Are we talking about crowd of people seen covering the sky?
Oh no, this is about the horns of Satan. I just wanted to.
Oh, sorry.
Sunset
I
in
moved
the
ahead
pond.
too fast. Okay. Go back. So you were saying, okay.
So this is the hadith that is Sahih, where Muhammad is affirming the literal setting of the sun in the pond.
Okay.
Mhm. And then, I mean, this is from Sahih al-Isnad, authenticated by Albani. This is from Abu Dawud. It's another book. And this again, it says Muhammad was riding a donkey. Remember, the donkey is the worst sound. Allah hates the sound of the donkey, but Muhammad loves riding it for some reason. He asks his buddy, where does the sun set? Do you know? And the guy's like, I don't know. Allah knows best, and his prophet. And Muhammad said, it sets in a spring of warm water.
You know what's funny? When you bring up this hadith, certain Muslim apologists say that that this hadith is not entirely accurate. That's what they say, what they claim, because there are other hadiths that in a higher number that narrate the same story but don't narrate that part in which Muhammad says that the sun sets in a muddy spring, but in which Muhammad simply says that the sun goes to prostrate under the throne of Allah and asks to rise again, and Allah gives the sun permission, so the sun rises again. And one day the sun will not be given permission, and then it will go and rise from the west, and that is when the day of judgment will come. It's like, no matter which story, no matter which hadith you take as the real deal, it is just stupidly absurd.
So this one,
yep.
here, he's kind of merged all of them together. So he's starting like in the Urdu translation I can read. He says that the sun goes into the pond and then it goes under the throne to prostrate to Allah, and then ask if it can come out again.
So again, this is, you know, like this just gives more and more confluence to the idea that Muhammad had no clue about anything. Like Allah has no clue about anything, because it's not just a hadith, it's the Quran as well is using the same language that is alluded to in the hadith. The hadith goes into more detail. If you want to throw out the hadith, okay, throw out the hadith, but then you still have the problems in the Quran, right? You know what I mean? Like the problems in the Quran, all the statements in the Quran are very geocentric. It's very much a model of a flat earth, you know, with the sun going in a circle around it. You know what I'm saying? Allah coming down to the lowest heaven is in the hadith as well. But you would have to probably throw out all of these hadith in the modern world, because it's just like that's the only way to save the Quran now, right? Because the Quran is a little bit more vague and you can kind of reinterpret it. But for those of us who actually care about what Sunni Islam is teaching, this adds more confluence to a very flawed cosmology coming from the creator of the universe, right? Like we expect better from the creator of the universe. That, you know, I had this guy in Hizb ut-Tahrir actually tell me, this guy was debating with me when I left Islam, it wasn't Allah's goal to correct the flawed science of the 7th century. So he just let it be misunderstood. Like he added to the problems by speaking in the flawed language. Like, at what point do you want to just admit that this is wrong? You know what I mean? It's like, no, exactly. he was just trolling them. Like, what? Like,
it takes some real absurdity, some real cognitive dissonance, some real willful ignorance to see hadiths like this accompanied with Quran verses that are so clear, undeniable, and you see very clearly in them that neither the Quran's author nor Muhammad, who I say is the same person, had any idea about how the universe works. And they clearly say that the sun goes somewhere at night. If you look at those hadiths, I mean, it should be a rule that if Muhammad asks a question, hey, do you know how this and this works? And then the other person says, Allah and His Messenger know best, then you are to expect something very dumb after that, because then Muhammad starts making up some very stupid stuff.
It's so funny. He exposed himself by doing this. Yeah. It's like he wants to be smart. Hey guys, you want to know what happens when this and this? It's like nobody asked you. Know best. Nobody even asked him. He's asking them to ask him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is like extreme narcissist. It's like I go to my kids. Hey guys, you want to know about this? Like, okay, with the kids it's more understandable. But this guy is just like making up stuff as he's going along. He wants to be like the smart, and of course they preserved it. Thanks to them.
Yeah. You know, there is the other story. There is this thing. He goes to his crowd, to his Muslims. No, they're sitting somewhere, and then they see a shooting star, a meteor, and then he's like, "Hey guys, do you know what this means?" And they're like, "No, Allah's Messenger know best." Like, well, let me tell you, what this is the jinns, the beings made of fire. Well, they go up sometimes. They try to go up there to the high assembly of Allah, and they try to listen to the high assembly of Allah and try to snatch some secret information which nobody knows. And sometimes they actually manage to snatch secret information from Allah's high assembly. And then Allah's angels notice that those jinns, and what they do is they immediately take those fireballs, those missiles, and throw them at those jinns. And those missiles chase those jinns and destroy them. And that's what happens when you see those shooting stars. Yeah, that's what happens, guys. And they're like, "Oh wow, thank you for enlightening us."
I found the hadith he just talked about. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, you found the same one? Yeah.
Exactly the same one. Yeah. He's gloating, like, look at that star.
Let's read this. Who wants to read this?
I think I'll let Apostate Prophet read it.
Oh, okay.
Can you see it? Is it big enough? Yeah. Zoom in a little bit more.
Okay.
So this is narrated by Ibn Abbas, a very valuable person. We were with the messenger of Allah while he was sitting with a group of his companions when they saw a glowing shooting star. The messenger of Allah said, when you saw the likes of this during Jahiliyyah, what would you say about it? They said, we would say that a great man died or that a great man has been born. The messenger of Allah said, it is not shot due to the death of anyone, nor his coming into life. No, no, no. Rather, when our Lord decrees a matter, he is glorified by the bearers of the throne. Then he is glorified by the inhabitants who are below them, then those below them, until such glorification reaches this heaven. Then the inhabitants of the sixth heaven ask the inhabitants of the seventh heaven, what did you, Lord, say? He said, so they inform them. Then the inhabitants of each heaven seek the information until the news is conveyed to the inhabitants of the heavens of the earth. The shayateen, the devils, try to overhear, so they are shot at, so they cast it down to their friends. Whatever they came with is true as it is, but they distort it and add to it. What the hell, man?
Oh my god!
Stop talking nonsense. You guys are not medical doctors. Notice the seven heavens there. Yeah, the seven heavens thing is another big problem in Islam that used to puzzle me as a Muslim as well, because it makes no sense.
See, why is Allah having so many redundant loops in the transfer points? Like, why can't He transfer directly from one point to another? Why is it like one angel to another to another to another? And it creates this weird security loophole where when he's passing, it's like a Wi-Fi connection that's not secure without password.
Yeah. Allah has bad internet. He's
it's I was gonna say, like what you were saying, just to add to what you were saying, Zidwan, that the hadith basically confirm, like, you know, the hadith that says one, we talked about this in the last episode, there's not hadith, the Quran verse that says one male witness was two females. Then you have a hadith that says, well, women are dumb. That just goes perfectly along with the Quran. I mean, meaning, like, if you wonder why would Muhammad say that, well, he told you why. So you don't need to guess. The sun setting in a muddy pool, you know, that's okay. That doesn't make sense. Well, look at the hadith. The hadith explains, well, it's going down in a circle down the flat earth, right? And it's asking Allah's permission. I actually had a very smart friend. His wife went to Harvard. I think she was a convert, Egyptian friend, one of the guys who runs Quran.com. And he actually told me, how do you not understand this hadith? It's metaphysical about the sun, you know, setting and asking for permission and blah, blah, blah. And I said, no matter how you look at it, the sun is always in the sky in the same spot. Like, there's no way to make sense out of this hadith, because if it's setting, if it's going and asking Allah for permission, but it's there in the same, like, you can put a camera on the sun, it's there 24/7. Now, if you want to make it into some metaphorical thing, that's totally up to you. But that's not how anyone understood it at that time, right? It's just now you're making it more and more unfalsifiable. What's the word?
Unfalsifiable.
Unfalsifiable. Basically, you're making Islam unfalsifiable by saying none of these things. So, like the shooting stars thing, I don't usually use. I don't pick on that because, again, it's secrets of the unknown. But the sun setting in the spring, and, you know, Allah coming, these things actually cause problems because they clash with the real world cosmology, the seven heavens. We can find out what the seven heavens meant. And by the way, Bud Ehrman, I learned this from him. And the funny thing is, it was actually, it wasn't Bud Ehrman. It was Nadir was debating with, I think, Aaron Ra. And he brought up the seven heavens, and Aaron Ra was like, seven heavens, yeah, like Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, and Venus, and the moon, or something, right? That's the seven heavens. Like, that's exactly Plato's seven spheres. That's what ancient people used to believe in, the seven heavens.
Yeah.
It's clear as day. And then he explained it so beautifully that, okay, and he's not even no, it was Richard Carrier. Richard Carrier did this with Nadir. And he said, okay, look, if the Quran, and he was using the example of the Bible, but it makes perfect sense with the Quran. If the Quran doesn't define a certain term, that means that people understand it already. You're not changing the meaning. So we look and see, what did those people understand at that time? And that's exactly what they understood, the seven planets. Yeah. Right? Like the big ones. So at that case, we can understand that like this is wrong. The Muslims today will now say it's seven universes. Okay, the first heaven is this entire universe, and then there's another universe. But like, that's not what they understood it as, right? And so
I thought it was 7 layers of the atmosphere.
That's even worse because that's just stupid. There's not even seven.
Yeah, because
seven layers.
the Quran says that the stars are in the nearest heaven. That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That alone blows that apart. I think Nadir tried to use that as well with me, and I'm like, no, the Quran says the nearest heaven has stars as lamps or whatever. Right? Gondal, how much time do you have left?
Like about 15 more minutes. And
Okay.
then we can wrap it up. Yeah.
So do you want to
We
go back to
through
the
a few more
slides then?
things.
Or?
Yeah.
I want to add something very brief. I want to go very long, but to the whole thing, when you bring up the whole issue with the sun not moving anywhere and being right there, what's very funny is I actually made a short video about this stuff in which I challenged all Muslims and said, hey, Muhammad and the Quran clearly described that the sun goes somewhere, that it has a stopping point, that it goes into a puddle, that it goes to worship Allah at night and comes back in the morning, and it will come back from a different direction, and so on. How can you possibly believe this when the sun does not go anywhere? We revolve around the sun and all that, and the sun is there at that same point. And you know what the response was? One Muslim apologist made a response and said, ha 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 ha, so dumb, the sun is not static, the sun actually moves around the galaxy. And then they all forgot everything that we said and said, ha ha ha, look, so ignorant, the sun actually moves around the galaxy, ha, case closed. And this is how it works.
That response is comical to me because they're talking about a 300 million year orbit around the Milky Way galaxy, around the super black hole that we have.
How is that related?
How is that relevant to humanity? Yeah. I mean, it's a joke, right? To actually say that's what the Quran's talking about.
Yeah.
Clearly, everybody thought the Quran's talking about the sun and the moon.
Yeah.
The orbit of the sun and the moon, right? Like everybody, it's so obvious, right? And obviously that's what Muhammad thought. Now, of course, you can try to retwist it or whatever, but reinterpret it in a different way. But it's not it's not a plausible interpretation because it's just like completely out of place to anything, right?
Yeah.
And then it always talks about sun and moon.
Yeah,
like there's no way
sun and moon chase each other. They cannot catch up to each other. They follow each other. That's what the Quran repeatedly says.
Yep. Okay, so this was weird. I didn't really get this, right? So what's going on here, Gondal?
All right, let me just pull that up on my side. So I feel like what's going on here is that Muhammad was just standing there, and he then told people that one day I was just chilling, and I looked up, and there were some nations were displayed before me in the sky. A prophet would pass in front of me with one man, and another with two men, and then another with a group of people, and then another with nobody with him. Then I saw a great crowd covering the horizon, and I wished that these were my followers. But it was said to me, this is Moses and his followers. Then it was said to me, look, and I looked, and I saw a big gathering with a large number of people covering the horizon. It was said, look this way and that way. So I saw a big crowd covering the horizon. Then it was said to me, these are your followers, and among them are 70,000 who will enter paradise without being questioned. Then the people dispersed, and the prophet did not tell who those 70,000 were. Companions started talking about them. As regards us, we were born, heathenism. But yeah, anyways, they're confused. Oh my God, am I going to be the one that's amongst the lucky 70K? You know, the cool, yeah, Islamic. But like, this is just weird where this guy's just standing there, and then it's just it's like, you know, he did some shrooms, and he's just standing looking at the sky, and he's seeing these images, or I don't know.
It's weird to imagine that.
Yeah, like this is like a holographic show in the sky that, you know, only Muhammad can see, and 70,000 people worth.
Yeah, that's weird, right?
I genuinely believe that Muhammad had some mental problems.
Oh yeah,
I don't think that he was just an evil guy who made everything up. I think that he had some genuine mental problems, which encouraged him to make up things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jihadi Gabriel.
So this is interesting and this happened a few times when Allah's messenger returned on the day of Khandaq, the trench battle. He put down his arms and took a bath. So Muhammad's like, all right, our battle's over. Let's all go clean up, you know. Then Gabriel, whose head was covered with dust, came to him saying, you have put down your arms? By Allah, I have not put down my arms yet. Allah's messenger said, where to now? Then Gabriel said, this way, pointing towards the Jews. And they went towards them, and then Rest is history, where Muhammad slaughtered their 800 to 900 men and children who had pubic hair as a qualifier for beheading, and the genocide of the whole tribe. But the precursor to that was this jihadi Gabriel apparition came to him and convinced him to do it.
This just makes me think again. Mental problems. He fights a war. He goes home, and then he sees this hallucination of the guy who says, "Hey, why are you putting your weapons down? We have more work to do. Let's go and behead that whole tribe." And he's like, "Oh yeah."
The other good thing about that one is it's not just that this happened then with the Gabriel. It also happened a few other times too, and you'll see that Gabriel would pop up in the form of this guy named Diha al-Kalbi, where people will be standing in front of Muhammad like, that's your companion. We can see him. He's the guy that we all know. And then Muhammad like, no, that's Angel Gabriel. So another version says that it was that guy who was talking to Muhammad, and Muhammad's wife was there, and she's like, fuck's going on? He's just a guy. Muhammad says, no, it's an angel. And this is the Capgras delusion syndrome, whatever, it ties in nicely too. But yeah, it's just weird. And then angels fighting is like in the Battle of Badr, they won the battle for the Muslims. But then when they showed up in Ohad, shit, they didn't win the battle. They lost it. Right? Like, and then it's a weird when you think about how crazy the guy is. He's having angels sitting on here, angels writing your deeds, angels everywhere, angels throwing shooting stars at you, angels bringing revelation. It's
angel choking him.
Angel choking him. Yeah. He's wrestling an angel in the mosque.
Oh yeah.
The genie.
Oh yeah. No, that was the jinn.
He's wrestling with the devil.
That was a jinn.
Yeah, I think that's the next slide. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
I think so. Oh yeah.
That's right, yeah.
God. Oh boy.
I just want to hold on. I just want to point one thing out. Where is he? Okay. You guys talking about hadith? There's something wrong. We'll write hadith. If you guys have guts, then talk about Quran. We are talking about Quran too. Like, I mean, there's more content in the hadith, but like actually a lot of these things refer to Quranic teachings. Like, for example, Satan, the idea of devils and all of that, the specifics. And this is actually quoting the Quran, this hadith. This hadith quotes the Quran, right?
You know what's funny? The hadith are more authentic than the Quran. There is no reason for you to believe in the authenticity of the Quran if you do not trust the hadith. If you do not trust the hadith at all, then with the Quran, all you have is a book that was delivered by some people, brought by some people, and that makes some very, very big, extraordinary claims. You can only verify what the Quran is and why it says all the things that it says because you look at the hadith, and the hadith explain to you how the Quran came into existence, how it was preserved, how it came to be the book that you have. If you do not trust the hadith, if you throw them out, then you have nothing. You have no reason to trust the Quran at all.
It's the same process of preservation.
Yeah.
But in this hadith, it's just that Muhammad literally has like fist fighting, like UFC match with the genie, and he's tackling him. And then eventually he says that Allah gave me an upper hand and I put Satan in the chokehold. So I don't know if he's getting the one back because, Gabriel choked him. He's like, I'm going to choke this guy.
What's funny is, no doubt, I thought of tying him to one of the pillars of the mosque till we get up in the morning and see him. But then I remembered the statement of Prophet Solomon.
Such a nice guy.
Yeah.
So wait, I'm just picturing Muhammad has this imaginary devil in his arm in a chokehold and he's dragging it to the pillars.
I wanted to tie him up so you can all see him, but then, I didn't do it. Yeah. So he's gone now.
Okay, this one's good. Okay.
Oh my god! Oh,
I'll let AP read this one.
Really? Will you do me the honor?
I'll do it. You want me to do it?
Okay, yeah, Samir, do it.
What? Okay. Who? Samir? Okay, you do it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna ignore the first part about putting on a cloak, blah blah blah. Okay, I don't know why they mentioned that about the cloak, which was perfumed, and there was a trace of yellowness on it. Why did anyone even bother to?
It's a skid mark, bro.
So there was okay, whatever. I don't care about your cloak, man. It has yellowness on it, whatever. He said to the prophet, holy prophet, what do you command me to do during my umrah? it was at this juncture that the revelation came to the messenger of Allah, and he was covered with a cloth, I guess the one with yellowness on it. And Allah said, would that I see revelation coming to the messenger of Allah. Hazrat Omar said, would it please you to see the messenger of Allah receiving the revelations? Omar lifted, so he was under the cloth. They lifted the cloth. Hey guys, you want to see this? Big show, come and see the prophet getting revelation extra. Okay. Oh look, there he is, eh? And Omar lifted the corner of the cloth, and I looked at him, and he was emitting a sound of snorting. The narrator said, I thought it was the sound of a camel. When he was relieved of this, when he stopped snorting, he said, where is he who asked about Umrah? So the prophet's done snorting like a camel, under his cloth. The person came, the prophet said, wash out the trace of yellowness. Oh yeah, wash off the perfume or whatever, and then do your Umrah.
I think this is a case of where a guy just kind of like had a moist fart and he had
So there's an interesting story to this. Abdullah Gondal and I were in a Facebook group called Speaker's Corner. It's called Speaker's Corner, and Gondal shared this hadith, and they kicked us out of the group because he shared a hadith about Muhammad snorting like a camel. Okay, like we didn't make up the hadith. It's embarrassing. Okay, Muslims might be embarrassed by that, but that's what he was doing. It was like, spit was coming out of his mouth and snorting like a camel. Like, yeah.
Wait. So the hadith say that that Muhammad was receiving revelations from Allah, and while he was doing that, he was making very strange noises, like snorting like a camel. And you brought this up to Muslims in a discussion, and they kicked you out.
Yeah.
They got mad. And it's called Speaker's Corner. It's a debate group. I don't even know how I ended up in that group. I think one of them added us or something. I don't remember. I don't know.
Boy.
Anyways.
It's so ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, right? Okay.
That just sounds. There are more hadith. There is, for example, another hadith in which Gondal, I'm sure you're very familiar with that one. It says that Muhammad, whenever he would receive revelations, he would hear a sound like the ringing of a bell, and he would feel very uncomfortable, and then the state of revelation would be over, and he would be very sweaty and things like that. In this one, you see that when he would receive a revelation from Allah, he would make very strange noises and be under a cloak. And it just makes you think. I mean, when I think about this, I think about from the few or the many psychology lessons that I got. What I think about is that Muhammad clearly seems to have a mental disorder, which give him certain seizures and certain delusions, which make him act and think in a certain way. And he has certain episodes after which he believes that he has received a certain revelation. And maybe the whole idea that he is getting revelations from Allah because of his mental disorder made him actually believe or reinforced his idea that he is a prophet, and he started making up more of those revelations while also receiving these episodes, while receiving these seizures and these hallucinations. It simply looks like a bad mental problem. I mean, why is this how Muhammad receives revelations? If Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, why is this how Allah sends revelations to Muhammad? Why are seizures, noises, the way in which Allah sends revelations to his holy messenger? It's very absurd.
And so we're gonna wrap it up on that, and it's been a great show. Abdullah Gondal, any final words from you?
Speaking of finishing off where AP left off, the whole mental health thing, I personally do believe that the best explanation for Muhammad is temporal epilepsy with a damage or focal origin on the left side of his brain, because we see constantly that his face would turn to the right again and again when he'd get revelation. And then he'd go like this and then something like this, and he'd move his lips while he's completely blanked out. I'm making something special on this thing, but I would say, that's probably one of the most powerful explanations. And when you do survey the evidence, it becomes crystal clear that if we cannot pinpoint exactly what it was, at least we can know with 100% surety that something of neurological origin was happening in his brain that caused all of this.
Absolutely. And thank you. That obviously always love your insight, and it's just amazing, that you're able to take your knowledge of Quran and Hadith and now what you're learning and, connect the two. Ridwan, any final words from you?
I really enjoyed this show. I think this was really, really great. We went through a lot of fantastic stuff. I really loved this. We should do something together on my channel too.
Yeah.
We should also talk about the whole psychology of Muhammad and all that. But yeah, I really loved this. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Honestly, we definitely vibed. This was like, I know we had a bunch of slides and we never got through them, but it was just like we had a thing going on where we were talking, things just were connecting. We have a lot of things in common that, to discuss, and a lot of overlap in, some of the things that we've been debating and discussing with Muslim apologists and stuff. So it was great. We definitely vibed. Yeah, let's do this again. Let's definitely do this again. And very specific topics we can come up with and talk about.
I was thinking, if you want to do a presentation on like the mental health on AP's channel, we can also have somebody like Ali Rizvi, who is a pathologist, certified and practicing medical doctor. We can have him on the panel, and then I have a couple other neurologist friends. Maybe we can talk about in detail. It'd be cool.
I would love that. I would love
to
really do that.
Yeah, sure. I would say I know less about that, so maybe I wouldn't be a part of that one. But like, if we're going to do another one on the actual Quran and Hadith, specifically, not necessarily on the medical aspect, then I'll be happy to be part of that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
for sure.
I would be honored. It would be awesome.
Well, you know what? I'll start making the slides into like a PowerPoint. We did this one last year on Samir's channel, but I'll make a newer one. And in this one, we'll go on your channel and we will refute Farid and his doctor buddy as well, because they also were involved in this back and forth with me. But yeah, it'll be fun.
Awesome. I look forward to it. I'll be watching that one as well. And to everyone that's here, thank you for joining. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and to all of my moderators, Food and Religion, Beach Price, Andrew Mudden, and all of the supporters, Zara, and all the patrons as well. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel and to help me to continue doing this work. Really appreciate it. Thank you to the All-Star team that we had today. This was a great show. Honestly, we can probably go on for 5 hours if you wanted to, but I think we've covered enough. This is enough for anyone to leave Islam. There's enough in, I'd say 10 minutes of the content, like honestly speaking. The accumulation of all of this, and surprisingly, nobody called in. Maybe not surprisingly, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm really happy when Muslims call in, and I'm a bit disappointed that no one called in today. I really, really love it when Muslims call in, and we're going to be respectful. We don't bite. We like having conversations, especially if you don't agree with what we're saying. I'd love to hear it. So in future call-in shows, the two Abdullahs, please do call in. We would appreciate your time. You don't have to be scared. Don't have to show your face even. Just be respectful, and we'll be respectful back. And like, deal with the content. And maybe this content is, we're not trying to be intimidating here. We're not going to make fun of you or anything like that. I mean, we're making fun here, but if you call in, we'll be respectful for sure, right? So do engage with us. I mean, we want that. We definitely want this sort of back and forth, and we want to make this a call-in show, not just us talking by ourselves, right? Like, we want it to be two-way street, not just a one-way street. So just keep that in mind. And thank you guys. And final word, AP.
Stay away from Islam.
Stay away from Islam. And Gondal, Science Akbar, what do you say? Science Hafiz?
Science Hafiz.
Science Hafiz. Okay, everyone.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye.